Oh man. Yes, sir. On, bro, please, bruh. Oh my god. Alright, let's just, yeah, this is what we got. We gotta lock in on this stupid thing. Fries in the bag. Now we got a bunch of things to finish. Okay. Wow, it actually works. We're so back, bro. We're so back. Alright. We're gonna do, what's it called? We're gonna answer all these questions, and then we also need to go through all this entire exam. See how it is. Let's see what I'm doing. I'm doing wrong at geometry, coordinate, punctuation, describing phrases. Punctuation with describing phrases, huh? Let's do that. Punctuation with describing phrases. Let's ask, what skill here is punctuation with describing phrases? Boundaries right here. Form. We're gonna do this one. Actually, let's do every single one. Who cares? Put it to our hard tier. install. I bet. Although eastern North Pacific gray whales generally migrate between the wintering waters along the coast of Mexico, their foraging waters in the Arctic, a subset of this population known as the Pacific Coast Feeding Group, forages along the coastline of Northern California. The British Columbia, Canada, instead, interestingly, individuals is a subset with each smaller maximum sizes than other UNP whales do, despite having similar pre-maximum growth rates. I apologize, this difference may be adaptation to distinct resource opportunities in the free. So this one's talking about, if true, which would directly support the claim regarding size of PSFG whales. This one's just talking about how subset population. Easy answer. I got a screenshot. Read the explanation here. While we see topic taking the following notes, student wants to make and support a generalization about the exoplanets, which choice most effectively use the valid information from the notes to accomplish this goal. Generalization. This is not a generalization. This one's crossed out. Doesn't even talk about it. This one might be it. Done. Okay, but games are quite outspoken, doesn't work. Ambivalent. I don't know what this means. Abrasive. Why would it say abrasive? That's kind of like opaque. Opaque usually means like you can't really see through, but the games are often like unable to see about the data they collect. Why? Because it's very. So it could be ambivalent or opaque. I feel like I've seen opaque is just kind of like shadowy. Ambivalent. Let's try it. There we go. Let's see what ambivalent meant. Trust is incorrect because describing the game as ambivalent or having mixed feelings wouldn't make sense. Yeah. Opaque means games deliberately avoid sharing. Yeah. No, my bad. I'm gonna be right back, actually. Brother. Brother. The variety the variety of species with adaptations to produce toxins is matched by the variety of uses of these toxins. Northern stargazers, for example, use toxins for defense, whereas tiger snakes use toxins for predation, and skeleton shrimp use toxins for specific competition. Which finding was true would support his conclusion? Conclude that a particular form of venom production observed may have been propagated through species because it mitigates risks during feeding, in addition enhancing predation success. To enhancing predation success. Where does it even say E. coli? E. coli. It only says this. E. coli is not even said anywhere. Oh, right here. E. coli. Subdue prey also inhibits growth of the particular form of venom production observed in. This one might be confusing. Wow. Wow. Who is that? Who is that, bruh? E. coli does not appear to be virulent for C. gonarsus, even though they're transmitted from prey captured without the use of venom. This one can't be right. This one. This one's hard. What the frick? The variety, command of evidence. The variety of species with adaptations to produce toxins is matched by a variety of use of those toxins. Northern stargazers, for example, use toxins for defense, whereas tiger snakes use toxins for predation, and skeleton shrimps use toxins for intraspecific competition. In fact, a species may have adaptations enabling it to produce a toxin with multiple uses. Finding that the venom used by the Panama scorpion to subdue prey also inhibits the growth of the pathogenic bacteria. particular form of venom production observed species because it mitigates risk. Panama subdue also inhibits growth of the pathogenic bacteria. Colleagues conclude that particular growth form of venom production observed in the sea mitigates risk during feeding. Yo, I hear y'all laughing downstairs, but stop playing. It mitigates risk during feeding in addition to enhancing predation success. What the frick? Oh my god. Why the heck did I get this one wrong? This makes 0 sense.
One moment. All right, I'll go through it piece by piece. First sentence. Lots of species make toxins, and they use them in many different ways. Second and third sentences give examples for defense, for catching food, for competition, and sometimes one toxin does more than one job. Next, the scorpion's venom helps catch prey and also slows harmful E. coli. So the scientists conclude that the venom spread in the species because it helps with both catching prey and reducing danger during feeding. That's the key conclusion. Now, why B supports it? If E. coli is often inside the prey and survives digestion, then the venom killing it would actually protect the scorpion while eating, matching that reduces risk part. Choice D, the one you picked, talks about killing non-harmful bacteria. But killing harmless bacteria doesn't show how the venom makes feeding safer. So it doesn't support the conclusion.
Where in the thing does it say, like, I'm confused, because it says what claim directly supports him. So then where in the thing does it, like, for part B, where is it said that directly supports it? Like, I don't get it.
Think of it as a connect the dots. The claim is that the venom reduces risk during feeding. Choice B shows that there is a real risk. Harmful E. coli is often in the prey and survives digestion. So unless something else stops it, that's a problem. If the venom
still makes no
kills E.
sense.
coli,
I don't get it.
it protects...
If you're saying the claim says that the venom reduces risk during feeding, first of all, you're not giving me the exact wording. I don't know where it's at, because it says finding that the venom used by the Panamanian scorpion to subdue prey also inhibits growth of the pathogenic bacteria of whatever this is, and then colleagues conclude that the particular form of venom production observed in C. gonorrhoeus may have propagated through the species because it mitigates risk during feeding. So what does that even mean? So it's saying that the colleagues conclude that the venom produced in the C. gonorrhoeus may have propagated, like, what may be due to the species because it stops the risk during feeding and addition to enhancing predation success. So it's just saying, like, feeding and then catching people with the same venom. And then part B is saying it's frequently found in species preyed on C. gonorrhoeus can survive exposure to the digestive juices. How does that relate to, like, how does that both make sense together? What?
So the idea is that the venom helps with both catching prey and stopping harmful bacteria. Choice B shows why that bacteria part matters. Because the harmful bacteria is often inside prey and survives digestion. So killing it reduces the risk. Choice D doesn't do that because it mentions harmless bacteria,
Okay,
so there's no
again?
risk.
That doesn't make sense. How does that? What?
Choice B shows how the harmful bacteria is often inside prey and survives digestion, so killing it with the venom reduces risk. Choice D doesn't do that because it mentions harmless bacteria, so no risk is being reduced.
But how does that support his conclusion?
The conclusion is that the venom helps with both catching prey and reducing risk. Choice B supports that by showing that the harmful bacteria is a real threat during feeding because it's in the prey and survives digestion. So if the venom kills that bacteria, then it directly lowers danger while eating. That backs up the
Oh,
reduces
so this is
risk
backing up
part.
the claim about the eating, but not the other thing?
Right. It supports the reduces risk part directly. You don't need it to mention
Okay,
catching
that makes
prey
sense. But
again,
then,
since
okay,
the
that makes sense. But then why is A, C, and D wrong?
A is wrong because saying the venom isn't strong enough to kill prey doesn't show it reduces risk from bacteria. It just raises a different point. C is wrong because it's about competition with the same species, not about feeding risk or bacteria.
Yo, you're not explaining it
And
properly.
D is
Why is
wrong.
A, C, D wrong? That doesn't make sense. You're just going too fast. Like, you need to explain it completely.
Got it. Got it. Let's slow down. Here's A. Choice A says the venom isn't strong enough to kill prey, but the claim we need to support
Yeah, that doesn't work.
is
Okay,
about
and then why is C?
reducing. Yeah, so C is about competing with its own species. That's not about feeding safety or bacteria. So it doesn't connect to the reduces risk while feeding idea.
I don't think there's anywhere in the passage that talks about like its own species. So, you know,
C refers to other members of the same species, not feeding safety. So it's not about risk during feeding.
wait, what is C? Like, explain this dumb terms. Like, C says C. gonarsis appears to be chemically sensitive to prey infected with E. coli and tends to favor uninfected individuals. Does that mean like those animals want um to eat only unaffected animals without the venom? Is that what it's saying? But then isn't that not?
Yes. Right. But then isn't that kind of saying they avoid risk? It sounds tempting. Here's the key.
Okay, but
The
I don't think
conclusion
there's
is
anywhere
about
in the passage that even talks about that. So then that would just make it wrong, right?
right. The passage's conclusion is not that they avoid sick prey.
Okay, great. And then
It's
why is
that
D
the
wrong?
venom's D is wrong because it talks about killing harmless bacteria. Killing harmless bacteria doesn't reduce danger, so it doesn't support the claim that venom makes feeding safer. In fact, it could even be useless or wasteful, so it doesn't strengthen the idea that the venom evolved to reduce feeding risk.
Exposure to the venom also inhibits the growth of non-pathogenic species common in native. That doesn't make sense. What?
Let me try one more time really simply. D says the venom kills bacteria that aren't harmful. Killing harmless bacteria doesn't make feeding safer, so it doesn't back up the conclusion
Okay, that
about
makes sense.
reducing
Yeah.
risk.
Okay, that's pretty. Okay, so then if I see this question again, not this exact question, but like if I'm on the SAT and stuff like that, this is happening. How to make sure not to make any of these mistakes again?
A good move is to first underline or say out loud what the conclusion is. Then check each answer and ask, does this directly make that conclusion more believable? If it talks about a different idea, even if it sounds sciencey or related, toss it. If it shrinks the gap between evidence and
Okay,
what
makes
they're
sense.
claiming,
But I
that's
feel like the main problem was this. Like, I understood this part. Whenever I was reading it, I was like looking back, like I was getting a mixture of the names, like E. coli, the C. gonarsis, then like things like maybe what else? Non-pathogenic bacteria species, maybe the propagated enhancing predation success. Like, how am I supposed to fix that up?
totally fair. The names can feel like noise. One trick is to mentally swap the names for simple labels.
Okay,
The
obviously
scorpion
people always say that, but like,
becomes
what else? What about the other things if I just don't even understand that part?
Exactly. You don't have to understand every term deeply. Focus on the relationship words like inhibits growth of, causes, prevents. Those tell you what causes what. Then match that to the conclusion. Here the key is venom reduces risk during feeding. So you ask which option shows risk is actually there and the venom helps with it. That makes the fluff easier to ignore.
Easy enough. Next one, which choice most logically completes the text? Duckweed is a small freshwater plant that is often exposed to zinc pollution. Sophia. Completed examples of 4 duckweed ecotypes, genetically blah blah blah, along with water for each ecotype's habitat, hypothesizing that each ecotype is adapted to its local condition in ways that bolster its growth and resistance to pollutants. The researchers grew each ecotype in all 4 water samples and with each levels of zinc, none low high. The research did not replicate local differences. They found that the ecotypes grew equally well in all 4 water samples, and that adding zinc consistently enhanced growth regardless of the concentration, suggesting that okay, duckweed is a small freshwater plant that is exposed to zinc pollution. Okay, let's make these dumb terms. So duckweed gets exposed to zinc. People collected samples of different genetics and geographic alongside the water. They guess that the ecotype adapts to the condition. They grew it in all different types of zinc. Did not replicate the local differences of temperature. Okay, so they didn't care about the temperature. In all 4 water samples, and that adding zinc consistently enhanced growth regardless of concentration. While ecotypes are generally and geographically distinct, those differences do not represent adaptations to local environmental conditions. I mean, low key, while ecotypes are genetically and geographically distinct, yes, those differences do not represent adaptations. I mean, maybe. That's pretty good. There may not be significant differences in the water that each ecotype, but there are significant differences in each of the. Nope. This one's gone. If each ecotype is indeed locally adapted as the researchers hypothesized, I don't think they hypothesized that. Hypothesized each is adapted to its local. Oh. Locally adapted. Those adaptations are to other environmental conditions. Those adaptations are to other environmental conditions than the water each ecotype inhabits. What? Inhabits? How does those adaptations? So the adaptations are to other environmental conditions. That makes no sense. Although the researchers' hypothesis does not appear to be supported, it does support. So, what? How the heck? Wait, this one's confusing too. If each ecotype is indeed locally adapted, this part, well, how the heck does this make sense? How the frick? Okay, this one I'm like, bro.
Yeah, it can feel like a wall of jargon. Try mentally renaming stuff. Checking. Yeah, I hear you. When every other word is a species name or fancy term,
Okay,
it
for this
feels
one,
impossible.
it's kind of confusing. I
Sure.
don't get this one because it says duckweed gets exposed to zinc. Then these people did
Right.
different genetics and geographic ones. They put in different areas. They hypothesized that it adapts to the condition.
Uh-huh.
The researchers grew each ecotype in all 4 water samples, none low high.
Yeah.
They didn't care about the light or temperature. They found that the ecotypes grew equally well in all the areas. So then I chose while the ecotypes are genetically and geographically distinct, meaning they're different, which is true, because they did genetically and geographically distinct populations, um, those differences do not represent adaptations to local environment. Am I stupid? Wait. Oh, I thought this meant like something else.
No.
Those differences do not represent adaptations. They do represent adaptations.
Right.
Is that right? Or no?
I see what happened. The experiment only tests water and zinc. So saying they're not adapted to local environmental conditions in general goes too far. The careful takeaway is just that if there is local adaptation, it's not to the water. That's why C is safer.
Okay, wait, but I don't get C because it says if each ecotype is indeed locally adapted. Wait, so would first of all would A be correct if it said those differences do represent adaptations to local environmental conditions, or what?
Huh. No, even that version would be too strong. The study didn't show any adaptation at all, just ruled out water as the cause. If indeed in choice C is doing that hedging. Basically, if it's true that
Oh, okay. So this is just making it too. It's saying that it's not talking about water. It's talking about zinc. Is it talking about zinc in the water? That's what's saying.
I'm checking. They tested both the water sources and zinc levels, since zinc is part of the water conditions. But C isn't about zinc. It's just saying that if local adaptation exists, it's not to the water itself.
Okay, but this didn't make sense when I was reading it. It said if each ecotype is indeed locally adapted as the researchers hypothesized, which this part is true, makes sense. Those adaptations are to other environmental conditions. Is it saying that these adaptations that's doing isn't because of the zinc, it's because of other environmental stuff than the water each ecotype inhabits?
One moment. Yes, just
Okay.
put simply, if these plants really are adapted to where they live, it's probably due to something other than the water they tested. So don't lock onto zinc. The
Okay,
key
makes sense.
is
Why is B and D
not to
wrong?
the water.
BD.
One sec. Yep, so now that C makes sense, B is wrong because it says there are significant differences in zinc resistance, but the results said they all grew equally well, so no significant differences. D is wrong because it makes up an excuse about zinc levels not matching nature. The passage never says that. That's speculation. C's the only one that sticks exactly to what the evidence shows.
Hey, what is D saying? This may be because the levels of zinc exposure the plants in the experiment received did not match their exposure in the natural environments. What the heck does that mean?
One moment. It's simpler than it sounds. D's just saying maybe the experiment didn't show adaptation because the zinc levels they used weren't the same as what the plants get in nature.
Okay, it
But
makes
the
sense.
passage
Now, how do
never
I
says.
prevent this in the future?
A good way is to ask yourself, did the passage actually say this, or am I filling in gaps? If an answer starts
Okay.
explaining.
That's just crazy. That is just crazy. All right. In the 19th century, some Euro-American farmers in northeastern United States used agricultural techniques developed by the centuries earlier, but it seems that few of those farmers had actually seen, varying the possibility of several farmers of the same area. What do you think of that? These facts most strongly suggest that in the early 19th century, some Euro farmers in the used agricultural techniques developed by people centuries earlier, but it seems that few of those farmers had actually seen the artisans' farms firsthand. these facts most. What is it saying? Okay. In the early, some farmers used techniques developed by other people centuries earlier, but it seems that few of those farmers had actually seen these people firsthand, meaning that there could be a possibility that several of the same era independently developed techniques that they already invented. These facts strongly suggest that. Okay. Those farmers learn the techniques from other people who are more directly influenced. The crops typically cultivated by farmers in the United States were not well suited to that. Were widely used in regions across. Only began to recognize the benefits. What? Those farmers learned the techniques from other people who are most directly influenced. Simple enough. This one was, yeah. I think all these were just not making sense at all. Word to bro. Put this to his conclusion. Let's just read his conclusion. Oh, we can't even. Some bananas treated in the last one. Comparing the data of the bananas. Comparing bananas ripened time before. I swear these guys are yelling. No ethylene with ethylene. No ethylene, it lasts longer. Comparing the data. Who wants to treat some banana with ethylene by nature, then allowing both types of banana to ripen as similar form? Comparing the data. I'm live.
Hello to your fans.
Not for sure. Comparing the data for the bananas.
I can see you. See me.
Yo.
Who's watching? I wanna watch.
The heck? I don't know who the other viewer is. Some random. Not me though. Comparing the data for the bananas with and without ethylene, the student concluded that bananas treated with ethylene ripen faster. Greater absolute change in ripening time. Easy, bruh. Come on. Alright, let's just make sure. Just want to make sure. You feel me? I got this one correct, but I just want to make sure why A, B,
What's
C,
that?
C are wrong.
So first thing, the main trap is picking something that sounds reasonable,
I want to
but
know.
isn't actually
I got this one
supported by the
correct.
passage.
Yo. I got this one correct, but I want to know why A, B, C are wrong. I meant, yeah. I already chose D.
Got it, checking. So D is right. Now, for the ones that were wrong. A says 20 degrees is the ideal storage temperature, but the graph doesn't evaluate what's ideal at all. It just reports
What'd you say?
ripening times. B says that for bananas without ethylene, temperature wasn't associated with differences in ripening, but the black bars clearly change with temperature, so there is an association. And C says
Yeah.
ethylene-treated bananas ripen faster at 14 and 16 than at
Oh.
18 and 20, but the graph shows the opposite because fewer days means faster ripening.
Wait, can you say that again? You got cut off. My bad. Just start from the beginning. Why A, B, C?
For sure. Here's a quick recap. A is wrong because it makes a claim about ideal storage, which the graph never tests. B is wrong because the no ethylene bars do change with temperature. And C is wrong because ethylene treated bananas actually ripen faster at higher temperatures, not slower.
Okay, so we were what? Okay, I think you hallucinate a little bit. C says that they ripen it faster at those temperatures. It never said slower. And then A, 20 degrees is the ideal temperature at which to store bananas to slow ripening time. This is completely false. Why? 14 is the longest, so yeah, A obviously is crossed out. B, for those bananas that were not treated with ethylene, differences in temperatures were not associated with the absolute differences. This does not comparing the data for bananas with and without ethylene. So D is obviously correct, but can you explain correctly?
One moment. Sure. So here's the careful version. The key phrase in the prompt is comparing bananas with and without ethylene. So any correct conclusion has to address that comparison. A is wrong because 20 degrees isn't shown to be ideal or best for slowing ripening. It's actually where ripening is fastest. B is wrong on 2 counts. 1, it doesn't do the required comparison with ethylene and without. And 2, the graph shows temperature is associated with differences for the no ethylene group. And C is wrong because it gets the direction backwards. Since fewer days means faster ripening, the bananas with ethylene ripen faster at 18 and 20, not at 14 and 16. D is the only one that actually compares with versus without and matches the graph.
Yep. The radical velocity method means an indirect planetary discovery has detected previously unknown exoplanets at vast distances from Earth. Comma, at 41 light years away. The gas giant ball 60 Neptune planet is dude. Okay, this is so stupid. The teacher literally told me when you have a semicolon, you can't do another colon right here. So now, why is this wrong? Why the frick? That's so annoying. He just told me that's not how that works. Okay, this
Checking. Let me take a look.
This one I would
Okay,
usually
I see the
choose B.
screenshot.
Yo, this one usually I would choose B, but then before I had a teacher in SAT, and he told me whenever there's a complex list, which this one says the gas giant semicolon again, and then another one semicolon. When there's a complex list, you can't do colons, which there was a colon right here. So then why? That's why I chose C, just because that was the only one. Obviously, C C doesn't make sense in its own, but it's the only one that was closest to correct since, well, the 2 commas wouldn't cause any issues with that. So that's just kind of confusing. Why would B be correct then? Can you explain?
Sure. So the rule your teacher gave is mostly right, but not absolute. The key is, you can use a colon before a list if what's before the colon is a complete thought, or if the colon is being used as a label. Here, Earth colon is being used like a label that introduces the specific distances and examples that follow. The semicolons just separate the long items in the list, and that's fine. Choice C doesn't work because it makes it sound like Earth is 41 light years away, which changes the meaning. So B is correct because the colon is introducing a labeled explanation.
And then why is A, D wrong, and then how do I not make this mistake again?
One sec. So, that's a really good question because it helps you avoid the trap next time. A is wrong because it basically attaches at 41 light years away directly to Earth, which makes it sound like Earth is 41 light years away, which isn't what we mean. D has the same problem. It still ties at 41 light years away to Earth. The big lesson is always check who or what the phrase is describing before you think about punctuation. If the meaning is off, even slightly, just toss it. On the SAT, meaning comes before punctuation rules.
Okay, makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, that's... Despite how they may seem in the first glance, the works of philosopher, readers who influential, the readers who manage to penetrate functioning dense prose often find that its thrillingly original and profound ideas wind up shaping their own thinking. Despite how authoritative they may seem in first glance, their work has been proven to be quite influential. That wouldn't work. Despite how uncommon maybe they seem at first glance, the work is influential. The readers who manage to penetrate Hegel's frustratingly dense prose often find that his thrillingly original and profound ideas wind up shaping their own thinking. Opaque means like hiding. No. Empirical? Maybe. Facile? Facile might mean like crazy. Empirical might mean... it's kind of a guess. Like, oh my god, this makes no sense. I don't get that. Choice B is the correct answer because it most logically completes the text. Opaque means difficult to understand or unclear. The text contrast, knowing that readers must penetrate. C is incorrect because it refers to empirical means factual or verifiable. Yeah, text is not, however. Because D is incorrect because describing Hegel's work as facile means superficial and simplistic, which would directly contradict the text. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Subseasonal weather forecast attempts to predict weather conditions 3 to 4 weeks in advance. Its predictions are therefore short term. A subseason predicts 3 to 4 weeks in advance. That's chill. That's easy enough. Okay. Having basically currently, which most, if true, most coherently and directly accounts for the observation presented in the underlined sentence. Having demonstrated that the power conversion efficiency of the new perovskite, so some random cells is nearly, the power conversion of new cells is nearly indistinguishable from that of cells that were recycled. This dude and his friends evaluated the cost of electricity and the measure produced for the material as well as operating for power plants utilizing each type of cell. With a model 15-year cell lifetime, the plants using new cells was 4.99 cents, whereas the plants using the recycled ones, which were indistinguishable, were 4.05 cents per. Moreover, the LCOE grew from 18.8% to 31.3% when modeled cell lifetime was reduced by 2/3. this one could be valid, but it's saying moreover the LCOC, the LC plants using new cells was 4.9. What does this mean? The LCOE, this is the plant area. The differential grew from this to this when the model cell lifespan was reduced by 2/3. What does that mean? What differential? The new cells were that, whereas the recycled ones were that, which is cheaper. The recycled ones are cheaper. Come on, this has to be wrong. I swear, if this is correct, this one has to be wrong. If I can select it, it's not gonna let me. Okay, that's fine. This one could be correct. Cells can be recycled multiple times without a significant decrease in power conversion efficiency. Is that what this is? Power conversion efficiency? And thus, the recycling cells more frequently does not change the LCOE plant. Although potentially less expensive than producing new cells, assuming new cell materials more. Maybe this one? What the frick? Like, this is so confusing. Okay, I can't be making mistakes again. Like, that's actually, like, stupid. These are stupid mistakes. I'm not gonna make a mistake again. I'm actually gonna figure this out.
Good. Like you just said, check the meaning first.
This one. If you see it,
One moment. Checking.
It says moreover.
I think you actually just diagnosed the real pattern. Start with meaning before rules.
What?
First, ask yourself, what is this sentence actually saying?
Let me talk.
So,
this question says,
go for it.
It's basically just talking about how when you recycle, it's basically the same thing. On an electricity unit, the power plants can use it. When they model it on a 15th timeline, the new cells were more expensive. The recycled ones were cheaper. But then it says, moreover, the LCOE differential grew from 18.8% to 31.3% when model cell lifespan was reduced by 2/3. What does this mean? I have no clue. But we need to see if true most coherently and directly accounts for the observation presented in the underlying sentence. I chose B, but the answer is C. How?
One moment. Yeah, this sentence is kind of dense. So first, in plain language, new cells cost more than recycled ones, but both perform similarly. Then the key detail, when cells don't last as long, the cost gap gets even bigger. So why would that happen? Choice C says new materials cost more than recycled ones. If you have to replace them more often because they don't last as long, you keep paying that higher new cell cost again and again, which widens the gap. That's exactly what the underlying sentence describes. Choice B just says there are costs to recycling too. That doesn't explain why the difference grows. It just says everything costs more. So your move on these, which choice best?
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. But then it says, moreover, the LCOE differential grew from that to that percentage. What does that even mean? Like, dumb terms? Like, what differential grew from this to this? How does that make sense when the model cell lifetime was reduced by 2/3?
Differential just means the gap or the difference. So when they assumed the cells wouldn't last as long, the cost gap between new and recycled got bigger. In dumb terms, if your expensive phone and your cheaper phone both break fast, but every replacement of the expensive one hits way harder, that price gap adds up faster over time. That's all that sentence is saying. Shorter lifetime makes
the LCOE, it grew from this to this, meaning it got more expensive. But then when modeled cell lifespan was reduced by 2/3, meaning what?
When they assumed the cell lifespan was shorter, like cutting it down a lot, that assumption made the cost gap get bigger. It's if we assume they don't last as long, The difference grows idea.
Okay, and that's because securing new cells, which they said right here, is more expensive, which would cause that. Okay, and then A and D is wrong because of what?
One moment. Yeah, you've got it. A is wrong because it claims that recycling more often doesn't change the cost, but that doesn't logically follow. Shorter lifetimes can still raise costs just through more frequent replacements. D is wrong because it invents a cause, operating costs rising, that's not stated. The passage never links the widening gap to operating costs. SAT trap pattern. When it asks which choice best accounts for the observation, think what changed. Here, the lifetime got shorter, so you need an answer that explains why that makes the gap wider. That's exactly what C does.
You didn't explain why D was wrong. It says as model cell lifetime decreases, which is true, which is what it's saying, plant operating costs increase, and thus the LCOE for plants using new cells diverges from that of plants using recycle. What do you mean? What does it mean by diverges, huh?
One moment. So diverges just means gets farther apart.
Yeah.
D is basically saying shorter lifetimes make operating costs go up, so the cost numbers spread out. It sounds plausible, but here's the problem. The passage never says that operating costs are what drive the bigger gap. It just lists what LCOE includes. D is guessing the reason. C doesn't guess. It points to something the passage supports.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I can't make this mistake. Which finding about the streams in the study, if true, would most likely support his conclusion? So several studies of sediment in streams have shown an inverse correlation, opposite correlation between sediment grain size and downstream distance. The sorting effect in sediment in study, sediment sample of more than a dozen sites. Fritz found that cross-site variation in grain size were not associated with differences in downstream distance, though they did not conclude that downstream distance is irrelevant to grain size. Rather, they concluded that they did not conclude that downstream distance is relevant to grain size. They concluded that the sediment influx in these streams may have been sufficiently spatially diffused. The frick? To prevent the typical sorting effect from being observed. Hmm? It says, however, so maybe it's the opposite from this. Several studies have shown that an inverse correlation between sediment grain size and downstream distance. Stream length has a sorting effect on sediment. Okay, so this one says it suggests that stream length has a sorting effect on sediment. This one says, however, so I'm guessing it's saying that stream length does not have a sorting effect on sediment. Yo, this is just what? Sediment influx? What does influx mean? I'm guessing influx means banks collapsing into the water. May have been spatially diffused to prevent. Let's go. Frick. Hard mode 2. Like, why is this so annoying? Influx. Influx meeting. Yes. It's funny was to support the conclusion if stream bags are collapsing to the water, then the sediment is getting to the water at those various points. Yep. Spatially diffused, meaning spread over a large area. Did I even? Did I take a picture of this? Mm-hmm. Mm. Okay, yeah. What the frick? Why are these so goddamn hard?
Got. Okay, let's take a look. All right.
This is the next
Here's the
question.
quick summary. This
So
is an
I'm kind of confused on
SAT
like
reading
what
question
the heck?
about
Whoa,
a
whoa, whoa,
30-year
whoa.
study
Yo,
on
yo,
brown
yo,
bear
yo, yo, yo,
diets.
yo, yo. Hello?
Yeah?
Okay.
Yeah,
So this is the
the
next question.
study.
Okay, like this is confusing how A is wrong because it says growing dissimilarity between mothers, which is literally said after separation. Daughters with regard to dietary may reflect changes in the resources available in maternal. Though social cute, like how is like? Can you first summarize this entire paragraph in dumb terms and then explain why A, like which A is wrong, B is correct, C is wrong, D is correct.
Yeah, so the basic idea is that young bears eat like their moms early on, but that similarity fades away after several years. So option A tries to say maybe resources in the habitat changed over time, but that's just guessing. The study never said resources changed. B fits because it says it might be social learning early on, then the effect diminishes over time, which is exactly what the data showed. C is wrong because the researchers didn't rule out environmental effects. D is wrong because the study didn't show that mothers actively shift to avoid competition. So, yeah, E is the only one that's grounded in what the
Why is
study
B
actually
right and
shows.
C, D wrong? That doesn't make sense. Can
B
you, like,
works.
like say B and then tell me the exact area in the paragraph.
One moment. Let's tie it directly to the lines. The passage says daughters match moms for 2 years, then not by year 5. That's social learning early on, then it fades. It also says correlation with similar habitats was modest, which means environment might play some role, so you can't rule it out. That's exactly what B says. C, though, says it's best understood as changeable due to fluctuating environmental conditions rather than social learning. The passage never said anything about fluctuating conditions, and it does give evidence of social learning. D says genetics appear to make a significant contribution, but the passage explicitly says cousins were no more similar than unrelated bears, which undercuts genetics. Quick tip. In these inference questions, underline words like may cannot be ruled out or appear to. That's where wrong answers often overreach.
Wait, so you're saying underlying words like may cannot be ruled out or appear to, because those could be wrong or those could be correct?
Right. So subtle qualifying words signal whether an answer is cautious or too strong. B is cautious in exactly the way the passage is. It says social learning early on, then fades, while environment can't be ruled out. That's directly supported. C and D make claims the passage doesn't support. C blames fluctuating environment rather than social learning, and D says genetics are significant, which the cousins comparison contradicts.
There's so many inference questions, bro. This is annoying. These questions are hard. I better get this one correct. I want to make sure I get this one correct. I have to. Man, fudge! How, dude? Oh my god, I was just thinking about this one. Oh my god, I'm actually about to be mad, bro. I got so many questions wrong. It's actually like annoying.
Okay, taking a look. All right, so the key
What the frick happened to your voice?
if Mars had just cooled into a simple
What happened to your voice? Okay, like, how does this not, like, it says, how did I get A wrong? Information about silica concentrations collected by the spacecraft is more reliable than the silica information gleaned from detected from Mars' surface. Like, why the frick? Like, just like how you've been doing all the other questions, explain completely everything, all parts, everything.
One moment. All right, so here's the key. Answer A is wrong because it sneaks in this judgment word, more reliable. Just because the spacecraft collected data and there's data from Mars' surface, the passage never states one is better than the other. The SAT loves this move, turning a simple comparison into an evaluation. Quick check to ask yourself is, did the author evaluate it or just describe it? If you share the full text of the question in all 4 choices, I'll walk through each one step by step like before. Checking.
Right here, man. Chill. Let me
Okay,
know about
so
A, B, C,
this one's
D,
actually a great
and then also like
SAT
summarizing the thing
question
because I already
because-
summarized, like I already talked about the paragraph type of thing. So just, I already know what the paragraph says. But just like extracting the lines for each part. Explain.
Got it. So A is wrong because nothing says spacecraft data is more reliable.
Mm-hmm.
B is wrong because other planets aren't mentioned at all. C is wrong too. Earth never comes up. D is supported because the new silica evidence doesn't fit the magma ocean story, which means other geologic events must be involved.
Why is B wrong?
B is wrong because the passage never talks about how other planets formed. So bringing in other planets is just inventing a comparison that's not in the text.
I keep on saying, okay, all this stuff is not in the text, but it's also the crust forming as a result of another major geological event. Is also not in the text. So like, how does that like what?
One sec. That's the trick. D isn't stated word for word, but it's an inference. The text says the old magma ocean model can't explain the high silica. If the old model doesn't fully explain it, something else had to be involved, which matches D. B isn't an inference from the text. It's just unsupported. It brings in other planets
you
with
said
no basis.
A is wrong because it says more reliable, but obviously that's an inference. So then wouldn't that work?
One sec. That's a good question. The difference is A is just one possible guess, but not a necessary one. D is forced by the evidence. If the old model can't explain the silica, something else had to be involved. That's a must. With A, you could also believe both sources are equally reliable, or that each has limits. Nothing in the text settles that. On the SAT, a correct inference is the one you can't avoid, not one that merely sounds possible.
Okay, but D can also merely just sound possible. How come it's just the one that's correct?
One sec. I get why that feels fuzzy. Here's the key. D is the minimum conclusion required to resolve the mismatch. Old model predicts low silica, new data shows high silica. So something else had to be involved. Not what, just that something else. A isn't required by anything. Here's a shortcut I think you'll like. Ask, what's the smallest claim that absolutely must be true given the text? That's D. Now ask, could the opposite also be true without breaking the passage? For A, yes. For D, no.
What do you mean the opposite could be true without breaking the passage, huh?
One moment. This is the part that confused me too. It's simpler than it sounds. Take A. If we say, the The spacecraft data are not more reliable. Does that contradict any line? Nope, the passage still works. Now try D. If we say there were no other major geologic events besides the magma ocean, now you clash with the line that says a basaltic crust would be unlikely to contain high silica. So D is required to resolve that mismatch. A isn't. If it helps, think smallest necessary fix to make the old story fit the new evidence. D does that. A adds something the passage never talks about.
Yo, what is with these stupid inference questions, man? Brick, which choice completes the text? These ones take so long. Like, how the frick am I supposed to understand what I need to guess? Okay, I need to find the smallest answer that's true. Let me first make sure I took a screenshot of the last one. Please, I need to get this one correct. I don't care what it takes. Oh man, this is good. Like, what the frick? Colleagues. To the partly attributable to the description of new invertebrate. What the frick? Species in the interim. Huh? What does this mean? Interim? Internship? Interim. It's not like another factor is that the morphological variability of microorganisms is poorly understood compared to that of vertebrates. So is this the species? Invertebrates, plants, algae, creating uncertainty about how the Cooties has reported similar counts of vertebrae, suggesting that okay, let's break this down. These people said that there's a lot more species than what these people said. And it's because they changed the description of what counts as a microorganism. Because we don't know what the frick it means, creating uncertainty of how to evaluate these species. The researcher's decision on such matters therefore can be highly consequential. Indeed, the two consensus reported similar counts of these things. Wait, what? Indeed, the two consensus reported similar counts of blah blah blah. But it just said that they're not similar. Another factor is that the morphological is poorly understood compared to that of Call and colleagues reported a much higher number of species than largely due. So this part is true. We know that for a fact. Nothing's guessed. Largely due to the inclusion of invertebrate species that has not been described at the time of the. Blah. This also maybe some differences in observed in microorganisms may have been treated as variations within species by indicative distinct. This is never said. I swear, if this is correct, I'm actually gonna explode. Maury may have been less sensitive to the degree of morphological. May. This is a good word right here. GPT said. To sensitive to the degree of morphological variations. Displayed within the typical species of then color. Maybe this one low key. This one says reported a much higher number of species than largely due to the inclusion of invariant species that have not been described at the time. We don't know if they were described. We don't know that. So this one, gone. Get the frick out. The absence of clarity regarding how to differentiate among species may have resulted in colleagues understanding the number of microorganisms underestimating. We don't know the absence of clarity. There was an absence of clarity. We can infer that on how to differentiate among species of microorganisms may have resulted in colleagues underestimating the number of microorganisms. How would they be underestimating if they were the ones that reported a bigger number? Gone. Please be correct. Please be correct. Please be correct. Please be correct. Actually, please. Butch! How? How? On God. On my soul. How? It says may and it's everything else makes sense. Yo, I'm actually about to like. Oh my God. On my life. On everything I love. Why the frick? Yo, GPT.
Hey, what's up? Talk to me.
You lied to me.
Oh no, what did I say?
Yo, look at this thing right here. Do you not understand?
Let me take a look. Yep. Yeah. If I got something wrong, tell me which part.
You said
From the screenshot, I see.
Stop talking. You said I chose C because it says Bianchi and Mori, the people who had less, says nearly double the number of reported blah 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 Bianchi and Mori may have been less sensitive to the degree of morphological variation. This is an inference, and it says may, which you said if it says may, then okay, then it's not as like big, and it could. So yeah, they could be made like less sensitive to that. Displayed within typical species of the microorganism then colleagues were. But then B says some differences observed in the microorganisms may have been treated as variations within this. Oh my God, this also says may. What the frick? Oh, I'm tripping. Yo.
Yeah,
Okay, so maybe you didn't lie. Maybe I'm just stupid. May have been treated as variations within species by Bianchi and Mori, but treated as indicative of distinct species by. Okay, this one reported a much higher A. I mean, A is wrong because it doesn't say it's making too large of a claim. D is also wrong because it's making too large of a claim. Why? Can you summarize this entire paragraph just like how you did before? Extract the main parts for then why A is wrong and then B is correct, C is wrong, D is wrong. And then if truly explain how I'm not going to do this mistake again because I keep on getting these stupid inference questions wrong, every single one. It's impossible to get them right.
One moment. Yeah, okay, so you're noticing something real. The word may doesn't automatically make an answer right. It just means the answer is being careful, but it still needs evidence. So let's walk through this one. The passage says that in 2010 there were a lot more species reported. Only some of that came from newly described invertebrates, so something else must explain the rest. Then the passage points at microorganisms and says their morphology is poorly understood and researchers' decisions matter a lot. So that points to classification differences as the explanation. B matches that. It says some differences may have been treated as variations by one team, but split into separate species by another. That uses the exact clues the passage gives. C goes beyond the text. It claims that Bianchi and Mori were less sensitive, which is basically judging the scientists. The passage never does that. It talks about uncertainty, not competence. A says mostly due to new invertebrates, but the passage says only partly, so that's a direct mismatch. And D says underestimate, but Call reported more species, not fewer. So the habit to build is don't ask, does it say may? Ask, what evidence supports this idea, and is every part of this backed by the passage? That shift is what gets inference questions right.
He's on a flight today, he said.
No class.
He's on a flight today.
मुनीत तो कह रहा था कि क्लास है.
No, he's on a flight.
तुम्हारा
Huh?
तुम्हारा नहीं था.
Go message him. He won't like.
Flying. He's flying.
Go message him. Alright, this is some bull. This is some bull. Oh my god. Why the frick? What did I get? I got 3 viewers. 4 viewers? Why do I got 4 people on, bro? Let me run this back real quick. Like, this just makes no sense. On God. Okay. So, can you re-explain B, C, D then?
Sure. B is supported because the passage says microorganism morphology is poorly understood, and that classification choices can be consequential. So it's reasonable to infer that different teams might split or lump species differently. That's exactly what B says. C goes too far because it claims Bianchi and Mori were less sensitive. That assigns a motive or a skill level that the passage never mentions. D is wrong because it says underestimate, but Call's census reported more species, not fewer. So D points in the wrong direction. The key is, does the passage actually point to what the answer claims? Not just could it sound...
Okay. Swear to God, bruh. Finally, those inference questions got me dead. No, I cannot do them for shit. Ah. Yo. This is actually mad annoying. Like, what do I do, bruh? Alright. Oh my god, bro. This is impossible. I'm actually just switch to This is impossible. Is dead set impossible? Let's get back to it. Let's just. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Some bullshit is okay. Stretch to fit. On, bro. Oh my god. It's just confused. One choice. Yeah. Huh? Oh wow, it does work. It's crazy. Don't even work. Some bullshit. I got you. Let's ignore this entire thing because it says which graph supports the researcher's conclusion. So this is all can go. The research concluded that white flies induce tomato plants. What? White flies? Plants exposed to air from white flies infested plants and infest. Okay. To emit chemicals that cause other tomato plants to preferably defend against micro. Let's go! I read this entire thing, and it was the only one that was correct. Oh my god! Forge dirt. 12 minutes. Fuck! Let's go. I don't care anymore, bro. That's so stupid. It's taking so long. For that shiz, bro. Frick that. Actually, frick that, bruh. Nobody cares. We're so back. That's crazy. Oh my god, bro. Yo, another like frick this stupid archaeology. Okay, which finding about remote sensing images, if true, would support them? Remote sensing images. Okay, they held that the culture which emerged in southwestern Amazon basin the first was characterized by sparse, widely distributed population of little intervention in surrounding wilderness. Recently, conducted a study using remote sensing technology that enabled to create three-dimensional images of the jungle. The researchers concluded that people developed a form of urbanism in the Amazon basin. What the frick does that mean? Developed a form of urbanism in the Amazon basin. Okay. This one. Please, 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 please. Oh! It's not even correct. They showed shapes of consistent monumental platforms and dense central settlements linked to smaller settlements by systems of canals and roadways. Oh my god. I keep getting every single one wrong. It's so annoying. Like, why the frick is that? How is that supposed to work? Oh my god. It's so confusing. Oh my god, bro. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. I just don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it, bro. I don't get it. What the frick? How the heck did that happen? Bro, my door got a hole. No way. Manib. Or we got a hole. How does that happen? Oh my god, brother. That's some annoying bullshit, dude. That is some bullshit. Like, how the frick am I supposed to do that? Oh my god. Oh my god. Let me make sure I take a screenshot first. Tell me how, man. All right, you kind of see a pattern now.
Yeah.
I
So
need
this
you.
is another
No,
command of
no, no, no,
evidence
whoa,
question.
whoa, wait.
The
I need you to
The
again summarize it all, just how you did before. Go through A, B, C, D, and tell me exactly what's happening, cause I keep on messing the frick up.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's boil it down. The old view was that the Kasarabi lived in small, scattered settlements with little impact. The new study says, hold up, there's evidence of urbanism. So we need something that sounds like cities or planned infrastructure. A just repeats the old idea of small, separated settlements, so that's out. B talks about footpaths to cities elsewhere, which implies the cities weren't Kasarabi, so that doesn't work. C says scattered small farms. That's the opposite of urban. D mentions monumental platforms, dense central settlements, and canals and roadways connecting sites. That is a city and infrastructure. That's urbanism. So the habit is first translate the claim into plain language, then ask which choice, if true,
Wait, C doesn't mean
would make
urbanism.
that
So then
claim
what would
stronger.
urbanism mean? And then what would the C mean? Would like on urbanism? Like what was the other one?
Right. So C says scattered small farms. That is rural agriculture, not urbanism. Urbanism is about dense population centers, planned infrastructure, public works. Think concentrated, connected, organized. Scattered farms are the opposite. Rural, spread out, low central planning. That's why C doesn't
No, was it
support the
there was
urbanism
rural,
claim.
there's urbanism, and another one.
Yeah, exactly. So C describes rural small
No,
farms,
there was three
not
things. There was rural, urban, and another one.
one moment. Right. So if we're talking in simple buckets, rural or urban, and the third idea is kind of a networked or connected urban system. Rural means dispersed farms and low density. Think countryside. Urban means dense population, city features.
Suburban,
That
dude. I
third
meant
concept,
suburban. You freaking. What does
yeah,
that mean?
yeah, that's suburban. Suburban is in between, more spread out residential areas, often around a city, not dense or rural. In this passage, though, the evidence they want is straight up urban, with dense centers and infrastructure, not suburban or rural.
Okay, so
That's why
C is
D
wrong
works.
because scattered farms is rural. B, they show shapes consistent with long distance footpaths running from territories to large cities. That's maybe suburban. What would that be?
One moment. It's not really suburban. The key problem with B is that it says the large cities are outside the Kasarabi region. That means that urbanism would belong to someone else, not the Kasarabi. Footpaths to outside cities doesn't prove they themselves
Okay,
had
but what is that
cities.
classified as?
So
Rural?
it's just off point. It doesn't establish their urbanism at all. It's basically
Now I
saying
know,
they
but what is
connect
that
to someone
called?
else.
What is B called? Is it called rural? Is it called? It's not called urbanism. Then what is it?
It's basically neutral or not even relevant. It's
What is it
it's just
called
saying
though? What would scientists like classify that as? Like, suburbanism or like what?
let me check. That's a good question. So B isn't really any of those categories. It's describing external connections, like trade or travel links to other cities.
Okay, makes sense. Now what about A?
That doesn't tell it. A is classic rural dispersion, small, widely separated settlements. That supports the old view, not urbanism. D is the one that's clearly urban because it mentions dense centers and infrastructure like roadways and canals. On this question, they don't need you to label suburban at all. The test just wants to know, does this support urbanism for the Kasarabi or not?
Alright, I'm not making this mistake again. I don't give a frick. Finally, standard English conventions, bro. Took long enough. Alright. Lent meaning lending. Man, fuck! Oh my god. I chose C. Why did I double... Like, is anybody seeing this, bro? Like, oh, chat. Chat, why the frick? Oh my god, man. Gang! I'm actually mad. How the frick? Oh my god. Oh. Why the frick, man? Oh my god. No, my god. Fuck. Bruh? Which choice explains confirms earning? Man, fuck! The choice C is the best answer. The word earning is used to introduce an additional modifying phrase, which describes how Feruz lent her cross-generational appeal. When verb ending with ing doesn't have a helper verb, it can modify noun. This is appropriate here. A is incorrect. The underlined verb is being used to introduce additional descriptive information, which is set off of the sentence by a comma. Because there is no subject here, a finite form of verb like earned creates an error. We need another form of verb that doesn't require subject and can introduce descriptive information. Her broad singing repertory lent Feroz a timeless cross-generational appeal, earned her the monkier, the soul of Lebanon. Earning her. See, okay. Now I'm confused because I chose A, but the answer is C, which like, oh my god, can you explain dumb terms completely?
Let me
what every
take a
syllable is
look.
wrong?
Yeah, let's slow it way down. The sentence already has its main verb, lent. Her repertoire lent her broad appeal. So we're done with the main action of the sentence. What comes next is just a result of that, earning her the nickname. That's a participle phrase, which is why earning works here. Earned makes it sound like a new main verb, and you don't have a subject ready for that new verb. Had earned creates a tense mismatch. Earn is just the wrong form. Quick test. If a sentence is already complete,
Okay, but like,
is
what do you
just-
mean? What do you mean? You're not explaining had earned or earned completely. What? Tense mismatch, wrong form. We say it.
Yeah, fair. So had earned is past perfect, which you only use when you're already talking about one past thing and need to go further back in time. Here, we're not setting up two past layers. It's just one past event and its result. For earn, that's just the base form, and you can't drop a bare verb there without a helper or a new subject. It just doesn't fit the structure.
Okay, so then you said earned doesn't work. We need to do earning. If we did do earned because there's no subject, would that mean we would be the subject would have been forced to be if we put earned there? What would the subject have to be forced to be, which wouldn't make sense? Like would it be lent? Would be earning or earned or what?
Yeah, so if you put earned, the sentence would read like, lent Fairouz appeal, earned her the moniker. That sounds like earned is starting a new clause, but there's no new subject there. Lent is already done, so earned is just hanging. Earning fixes that because it's not trying to be a new clause. It's just tagging on a result. Lent her appeal, earning her the moniker.
Okay, if we wanted to use earned, what would it look like?
You'd have to rebuild it. Like, her repertoire earned her broad appeal and earned her the moniker, or which earned her. Notice you need a connector like and or which to make earned legal. Without that, it just doesn't have a job
Wait, how
or a
does it make it
subject.
legal? What? Just adding that makes it legal? How?
One moment. Right, so what's happening is, adding and earned makes it a compound verb. Same subject, same tense, just two actions linked together. Adding which earned turns it into a relative clause. Which points back to the whole previous idea and lets earned have a proper subject. Without one of those links, earned is just floating there with
How would it
nothing
have a
tying
proper
it to the
subject?
main
To what
idea.
would be the subject then?
One moment. With and earned, the subject stays the same as before, her repertoire. You're basically saying her repertoire lent her and earned her. You're just stacking two verbs on one subject. With which earned, which stands in for the preceding idea, kind of like and that earned her. So which becomes the subject of earned. In the original comma version, there's no and, no which, so earned has nothing to latch onto.
Which becomes the subject?
Exactly. Which is the subject of earned in that version. Think of which like a pronoun pointing back to the whole prior idea. So which earned is basically saying that situation earned her.
Wait, so subject and a noun is the same thing?
One moment. Close, but not exactly. A subject is the role a word or phrase plays in the sentence, the doer of the verb, while a pronoun, like which, is a type of word. A pronoun can be the subject, but it doesn't have to be. In
That's gotta be some bull, bro. On my soul. Oh man. Oh man. What's good? I got you. I got you. Alright. W stream. I'm gonna have to catch you guys with another stream when? When can we do it? Raw Dog Moon, if you're seeing this, bro, like, I don't know what to tell you, bruh. We finna make it. But, yeah, W stream. Frick, I'm actually corny as frick, but I gotta go. Bro, SCT about to be hard, but we'll see it. We'll make it work. Peace. Wow, I'm still streaming on the